Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, Pop Retro. Pop Retro 1 at Twitter and Instagram. Facebook.com/Pop Retro. You can also find movie reviews at moviesanddrinks.com, where I contribute, as well as TV reviews at drunktv.net. A lot of drinking in those website titles, and that's how we like it. So, speaking of drinking, I would say I would want to drink a lot if I had to go through what this guy goes through in this movie. Weekend at Bernie's, 1989, total farce comedy starring Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman. Now, I saw Weekend at Bernie's originally on rental right around the time it came out, after it had played in theaters and then came out on VHS. So I was either 13 or 14 years old when this came out, and the main scene that I remember, I'm assuming most of you have seen Weekend at Bernie's, but the main scene I remember that always stood out in my pea brain as a young teen was when Bernie is being pulled with the boat and his head pings off those, whatever those things are in the water. Ping, ping. I don't know why, but I just thought that was hilarious, and that always stayed with me. So it was fun to rewatch this. I mean, I've seen it a few times over the years, and I recently picked up this Blu-ray in the past year. It was really cheap, and I found it, and I said, oh, that'll be a good one for the collection for when people come over. What I remember most is the silliness and the comedy of it just being such an absurd premise, okay? So you got these two guys, McCarthy and Silverman, and they work at some sort of, I don't know, financial institution, and they're kind of lowly employees, and they find some shady stuff happening when they check the books. That's kind of their job, going through all the archival records and keeping the book straight and this and that. And they find that it looks like there could be some fraud going on in the company. And so they take it to their boss, Bernie. Bernie is their boss at this company. And they're like, boss, this is what's going on. So Bernie, of course, says, you know what, good job, guys, and invites them to his really awesome beach house to, just hang out for the weekend. Now, of course, the reason for this is because, spoiler alert, Bernie is, of course, the person who is the fraudulent guy in his company trying to eke out a little bit more money illegally. And so he wants to put a hit out on these two guys, and because he's involved in organized crime. So, of course, the guys in organized crime think that Bernie has been just a little bit too careless. And so, unbeknownst to Bernie, they actually put out a hit on Bernie. So Bernie thinks that he's asked this organized crime syndicate to put a hit out on these two guys, his employees, but instead they put it out on him. So are you confused yet? Anyhow, you know he's dead because that's the whole reason for the movie in a lot of ways. So that's how we get to that point. And after that, it's just a matter of just hanging out, having a great fun weekend. And in order to do that, they can't call the police. They can't put they can't put people on notice that Bernie is gone, because there are so many people in Bernie's orbit at his beach house, on the beach where he lives. Everybody's always coming over for parties. He's got tons of friends, and somehow or another, these two guys, Silverman and McCarthy, are able to keep up this charade by just hauling this dead body around and keeping his sunglasses on him. And people just think he's, drunk or maybe half passed out or whatever, because they mostly are too, because they're just a bunch of party animals. And that's essentially the whole movie. It's totally absurd. And I remember when I was 13 or whatever, when I watched it, thinking, those thoughts of logic, that you get in your mind, that seems kind of unrealistic, or like, wait a minute, the body wouldn't have moved like that. There's no way they could have kept him upright like that. There's a lot of that in this movie that is just completely stupid and absurd, but that's the point, right? I mean, you have to just say, okay, that's the premise, that's where we're going with this, and that's how this film is going to work, is by just letting yourself believe that they can actually pull this charade off in front of hundreds of people for over the course of a weekend, or a day and a night and another day, whatever. So along for the ride is Catherine Mary Stewart, who plays a woman who works at Bernie's company too, whatever that financial institution is. It was like a big bank or something, I can't remember. But Jonathan Silverman, the character played by Silverman, has the hots for Catherine Mary Stewart's character. And so she winds up at this beach party as well. And so that's one of the reasons that they can't bring the cops in, because he wants to have he wants to spend the weekend flirting and perhaps having a fun time with this woman that he's met at work, but he was too shy to actually hang out with and mess around with and try to date. And so he sees this as his big chance. So instead of calling the cops, he says, wait, let's hold off on calling the cops. Even though Jonathan Silverman plays the more rational one who says, we got to call the cops. We got to get the cops involved here. And McCarthy is just always, no, we got a party. We got a party. Just let's hold off and have fun for the weekend. Well, Silverman is the more down-to-earth logical one. But once Catherine Mary Stewart shows up, he takes that off the table, calling the cops. He says, yeah, you're right. Let's just go ahead and wait it out. So anyhow, there's an assassin. One of the crime syndicate's guys gets wind that, oh, Bernie is still alive. I didn't kill him. He's actually dead, but people think he's still alive because these guys are hauling him around as if he's still alive. And so the assassin goes back to finish the job, and that is cause for more just absurd comedy. So $30 million, made $30 million at the box office. 1989 was not a huge success, but that was against a $15 million budget, which was enough to get a sequel made in 1993, Weekend at Bernie's 2. That is not out on Blu-ray yet. There was a DVD, but I never got it, and I think I watched it once way back then, so I don't really remember much about the sequel at all. I'd like to see it again just to see what they did. The director, Ted Kotcheff, Kotcheff, he actually directed the original Sylvester Stallone First Blood, the first Rambo movie. So that was another movie that this guy who directed Weekend at Bernie's directed. Andrew McCarthy actually replaced John Cryer, who actually had the role originally. And I don't know why Cryer dropped out or why he was replaced, but Cryer had it, and he was replaced by Andrew McCarthy, who was a member of that 80s Brat Pack. McCarthy was. And just real quick, listen to these titles McCarthy had leading up to Weekend at Bernie's. He did Heaven Help Us and St. Elmo's Fire in 1985, Pretty in Pink in 86, Mannequin and Waiting for the Moon and Less Than Zero in 87, Kansas and Fresh Horses in 88. And then that got him to 1989. So that a lot of Brat Packishness in those titles, in those movies that were released there between 1985 and 1989. McCarthy also just recently published a memoir in 2021, last year, as of this recording. It's called Brat, an 80s Story, which I've not read yet, but it's been on my radar to pick up and check out since it came out. Jonathan Silverman, I'll talk about first, since he's the other headlining star in this. What I remember most about Silverman was in 1995, he had a show called The Single Guy on NBC. And what I remember most about it, well, I don't remember a lot about it, but NBC had their must-see TV lineup in the mid-90s, which was Friends, Seinfeld, and ER. And those, for like a decade, from about 94 to 2004, that was just the number one night in television, super popular. Now, in between Friends and Seinfeld, Friends came out at 8, Seinfeld came out at 9. So the 8:30 show and the 9:30 show, those in-between shows, sitcoms, were always these shows that like NBC tried to find more lightning in a bottle with trying to find another show that would be just as popular as them. So they would often run these shows through, hoping to get a hit that they could then put it on a different night and try to build that night. And I don't think they ever really got there. It seems like there was just tons of shows. I think a few of them were able to be kind of mid-level performers for NBC, spinning off that. But at any rate, The Single Guy was kind of Jonathan Silverman's big push to try to be the next must-see TV comedy sitcom for that night. It ran from 95, 97, 2 seasons, and it kind of just aped a lot of what Seinfeld was doing and what Friends were doing. So so that's what I remember most about Silverman, was that he had that big shot with his own show, his own sitcom, on the most lucrative night that he could, the best launch pad that he could have had for in the mid-90s to launch a show, and it didn't work out. And I'd like to watch it again. I don't know if it was his fault, or it's hard to have a huge hit like Friends and Seinfeld. There were a lot of imitators, and The Single Guy was just was another one of them. So after that, you have Catherine Mary Stewart, who was in some of my favorites leading up to Weekend at Bernie's, some of my favorite childhood movies, The Last Starfighter, Night of the Comet, 2 sci-fi films that were really fun. She was also in Nighthawks, Sylvester Stallone, again, and The Beach Girls, a 1982 beach movie that, I don't know why I've always liked that film. It's one of the stupidest movies, and I don't think it's very well known, but The Beach Girls was... was another movie that she appeared in. She was not in the Weekend at Bernie's 2. She's not in the sequel. But Silverman and McCarthy and Terry Kaiser are back in the sequel. And Terry Kaiser, I just thought I had to point out, because he's the guy who plays Bernie, and I just thought, man, what a trooper, a guy who just had to play that part, essentially being dragged around and pushed around and being held up by the other actors and dropped, and had to do a lot of physical comedy, a lot of physical stuff, playing dead all through the movie. I think probably his best known roles are the Weekend at Bernie's movies, although he's had like a 50-year career. He's got like 150 credits. So I think he's just kind of appeared in a ton of stuff over the years. Terry Kaiser. So there you have it. A little bit on Weekend at Bernie's. This is a Blu-ray from 20th Century Fox, which means it was MGM, but distributed by 20th Century Fox. There's a look at the back. I don't know if that means this is now a Disney property, because I know that like 20th Century Fox's film library, much of it is now with Disney, but this is also an MGM film, so I don't know if this is one of the ones that went over. It's hard to keep track, but so nowadays I just assume everything's owned by Disney. So be on the safe side, just say it's owned by Disney. There's a look at the disc itself, and of course this is the Saving the Planet Eco case. So be careful not to stick your finger through you poke a hole in those. So there you have it. Weekend at Bernie's, 1989. Another favorite from my junior high years. So thanks for watching. I'll be back again with some more haul videos as well as another review soon, and I'll see you then.